Is your child's emotional intensity leaving you feeling like you're on a really wild ride and hanging on for dear life? You're not alone. In this episode, we're diving into the world of big feelings, intense reactions, and the unique wiring behind them. I'll share a parenting roadmap that will help you turn emotional chaos into meaningful connection and equip you to navigate that tricky journey of raising an emotionally intense child with confidence. Grab your notebook. This one's a game changer. Let's explore how understanding your child's needs can create a stronger, calmer bond. Welcome to Calm Connection Parenting. I'm your host, Jamie Kirkbride, mom of 7, parenting coach, professional counselor, and wrangler of big emotions. If you're raising a highly sensitive child with intense emotions or challenging behaviors and wondering if you'll make it through without losing your mind, you're not alone. Around here, we're all about real-life parenting, sprinkled with a little humor and a whole lot of patience. So grab your coffee, trust me, you'll need it, and join me as we explore tips, stories, and faith-based strategies to help you bring more calm and confidence into your chaotic days. Let's do this. Did you know that studies show more than 50% of parents report feeling overwhelmed by their child's big emotions? This overwhelm often happens because it's hard to understand where these emotional eruptions are coming from and what you should do about them. That's where the right parenting roadmap can really help, guiding you toward understanding your emotional, intense, or even challenging child. You may find yourself wondering, why does my child struggle with their emotions like this? What causes these big, overwhelming feelings? Or what am I supposed to do with this massive mess of emotions? And when you're unsure of what to do next, it's easy to feel stuck. The good news is that you can turn this emotional chaos into calm. By learning to decode your child's emotions and understanding what's behind them, you can learn to navigate their big feelings while strengthening your bond, rather than letting the intense emotions drive a wedge between you and consequently affecting the entire family. In this episode, we're talking about emotionally intense children. And I'd like to share 3 key areas to explore in understanding your child's unique needs. By the end, you'll have a roadmap to help you better understand your child's intense or emotional responses and build a relationship where their feelings are not just heard, but appreciated, even when they're different from yours. You might be wondering, how can I understand my emotional or intense child? If you're parenting a child who seems to feel everything deeply, emotional, intense, or maybe even highly sensitive, then you're probably looking for some guidance on how to manage their challenging behaviors and big emotions. And oftentimes, the conventional methods just don't seem very effective with these kids. In fact, what is often offered in many parenting circles might even seem to further trigger or even infuriate your child. And it leaves you feeling like you don't have very effective tools. This is why parent education is so important, because sometimes, no matter how good the tool, and no matter how many other children you've succeeded in using that tool with, it can totally flop and fail when you're dealing with that unique wiring that has this child needing something different. If you're parenting a child who is emotional or intense, you've probably noticed that they often seem extra in many ways. They may be extra loud, extra active, extra emotional, extra reactive. They may need extra as well, like extra guidance, extra attention, extra redirection, extra patience, maybe even extra hands, extra eyes, extra understanding, and extra energy. And that extra long list could probably go on. But recognizing this extra factor helps explain why you often feel extra exhausted in your parenting journey. So learning the right tools and strategies does take a little time that many parents feel they just don't have. But surprisingly, and I've heard this from many parents in my coaching program when they've admitted that in the long run, they save hours by not having to deal with the emotional roller coaster and eruptions when they can learn those right, effective, and useful tools. So indeed, the tools and strategies you choose will be key to calming some of that chaos that trips up your child and inevitably causes the whole family to crash. I guess you could also say these kids need extra care in choosing methods to parent them. Now, you might be wondering, what's behind my child's behavior? A key strategy for addressing your child's emotional intensity or their challenging behaviors is understanding what lies behind their intensity, their emotions, and also those behaviors you see. And once you recognize those underlying causes, you can respond in a healthy and respectful way that helps both you and your child move forward. Understanding what's behind your child's emotional intensity involves looking at several key factors. 1, their personality traits, strengths, struggles, or emotional needs. 2, their sensory processing challenges or sensitivities. And 3, potential mental health concerns. And I know that one can feel kind of daunting or scary to even open Pandora's box, but it really is important. Once you have a clearer picture of these areas, you will be better equipped to empathize, address concerns, and then develop effective strategies for navigating through your child's intense emotions and challenging behavior. The great benefit of understanding your child's behaviors is that they'll begin to see that you care about their thoughts, their feelings, and sometimes even their fears, and especially those big, complicated emotions that trip them up. In turn, they can start to trust you more and open up about their needs and emotions instead of bottling them up. This deeper understanding can even strengthen your relationship with them and help them express themselves more freely rather than feeling overwhelmed and alone. And truth be known, these bottled up emotions that go unexpressed are often the ones that fuel those intense emotional eruptions. So I'd like to share with you the first avenue in understanding an emotionally intense child. And that is simply to explore the child's personality. Now, maybe you've done this before, and maybe the study of personalities is new, but the personalities is generally the unique combination of a child's experiences, their family of origin, their birth order, it might be their attitudes, their behavior, their responses, and it usually begins to emerge when they are very young. In fact, sometimes you can even notice personality traits in an infant, definitely by toddler, and for sure preschool age. But this begins to emerge early and then continues to evolve as they grow. Personality helps explain why children do what they do, or why they don't do what others might expect. It reveals what makes your child tick. Now, this is especially important with emotional, intense, or highly sensitive children, because some of them are naturally, due to their personality, already more emotional. Their personality may cause them to take in a lot of details as they observe and analyze different situations. Oftentimes, they spend time replaying these thoughts, these feelings, and experiences. And if those thoughts are filled with worry or anxiety, they can quickly become overwhelmed and stressed. And that may relate to their emotional intensity. Or their personality may be very comfortable with anger. In fact, some personalities are even more in touch with anger than any other emotion. So their personality may be one that holds things in until they feel unbearable, and then all of a sudden they come apart at the seams. And in that personality, it can feel so unexpected when all of a sudden they respond so differently than how you've seen them handle something else or what you expected. So there's 3 different ways we can see that play out in different personalities. When parents are new to understanding an emotionally intense child, they often start off on the right path. But they hit a dead end when they realize they don't share the same emotional experience. The child's intense emotions can feel overwhelming, uncomfortable, or even triggering to some parents. And in their frustration, the parent may unknowingly air some of their own frustration, which in turn causes the child to internalize more feelings. This can make the child feel like they're wrong or in trouble, when in reality, it's the parent's frustration with not knowing how to respond to them or how to help them. This miscommunication can actually cause further frustration and anxiety for the child, who now has to juggle not only their original emotions, but the fear of upsetting their parents and the emotions that the parent has now added to the table. As you can see over time, this can lead to the child shutting down, complicating open communication, creating a cycle of emotional disconnection, and those big, ugly eruptions. The key to understanding your emotionally intense child and knowing how to respond is recognizing the basics of their personality. Take time to understand their strengths, their struggles, and this is so important, their emotional needs. When these emotional needs aren't met, your child's behavior and emotions tend to escalate. Understanding these aspects allow you to respond in ways that meet their needs and encourage them to open up, to share freely, and to feel understood. When you understand their personality features, you can even adjust how you communicate to match their personality, to offer reassurance, and to make sure that you are offering them acceptance rather than judgment or shame. This can create a safe environment where your child can begin to process those big or complicated emotions. Now, if you aren't sure of your child's personality, you might start with learning that. I encourage you to take the personality quiz at parentingwithpersonality.com, or you can find it on the free Parenting with Personality app. You can explore the parent personality quiz to uncover your own style and the child personality quiz to better understand your child. And for a deeper dive into personalities, I recommend a book that I co-authored called The You Zoo. This interactive personality assessment is told through a story about 4 monkeys in a zoo and the decisions they make in their day that help you understand the differences in their personality. This book can help you and your child discover their personality. And it's a tool I absolutely love for parents. It's the first thing we do in the coaching program together. And you can find this book on Amazon when you search for The You Zoo. Now, let's move on to the second avenue in exploring an emotionally intense child, and it relates to sensory processing issues. Sensory processing refers to how our brain and our body take in, interpret, and then respond to sensory information. Now, some children have challenges in processing sensory input. It might make them sensory avoidant, sensory seeking, or maybe even fluctuating between the two. It can lead to hypersensitivity, where they overreact to some sort of stimuli, or hyposensitive, where they underreact. And both of these can cause challenges in processing the sensory information that they're receiving in their world. If you've spent hours explaining things to your child, maybe attempting to ease their emotions or reassuring them that they can handle something they don't feel like they can, and you feel like maybe something's off, like you're not making progress, this just might be part of the missing piece. And without addressing sensory processing challenges, no amount of reassurance or even your explanations can prevent your child from becoming overwhelmed or shutting down and possibly even exploding with emotions. It can be kind of like a continuous battle, leaving both you and your child feeling very stuck and disconnected. So what can you do? Well, start by learning about sensory needs, sensory difficulties, and even just the variety of sensory systems. A great tool for understanding your emotionally intense child is to explore these sensory systems and the processing issues that can exist. Educate yourself on the 8 sensory systems, how they function, and identify which systems might be causing a problem for your child. I encourage you to think through the things your child tends to be extra responsive or under responsive to. It might be sounds or sights, textures, tastes. It might be movement or some other stimuli that you can think of in your environments. In fact, you might even not know that there are 8 sensory systems that can impact your child. Yes, I know it's more than we learned in elementary science. You might find a sensory list helpful as you try to identify what might be potential triggers for your child as it relates to sight, sound, smell, movement. So many different things. Believe it or not, many behaviors that are often labeled as defiance, stubbornness, refusal, excessive energy, or even avoidance can actually be tied to how your child experiences the world through their senses. They may have difficulty processing sensory information, which can lead to behavioral challenges. So don't automatically assume your child's behavior is a problem. It could be related to sensory processing, and sensory overload might be contributing to their intense emotions and the challenging behaviors that you're finding. Now, I have to admit, with my own children, I had never even learned about sensory processing. In fact, I had never even heard about it in my education as a professional counselor. And truth be known, I had gotten along just fine without that information until I was raising a child that needed me to know this information. So when we had a child who was experiencing these issues, I had no skills or abilities to even begin to understand it. And let me tell you, when I did learn about it, our child's issues suddenly started coming together. And I understood him in a whole new way. And it better equipped me to help others understand him in a whole new way. His behaviors that had seemed so frustrating or defiant suddenly were making sense. And the truth is, I will never forget the day an occupational therapist explained his unique wiring to me. And I have to admit, I felt a little teary thinking that I had missed such an important part of his world. And I realized I'd been parenting in ways that were never going to work for what he was capable of or what he needed. It really was a life-changing reroute in our journey. I learned effective ways to work with his wiring instead of in opposition to it. Awareness of his needs allowed us to adjust our strategies, which was pivotal and monumental in our journey. And honestly, I have to tell you, his emotional responses were cut in half. Honestly, probably even more than half. And that's why it's something that I include in the Calm Connection coaching program, because it's such an important piece to understanding these strong emotional responses. Now, I'll be back in a minute to talk about some great sensory processing resources. But first, I'd like to share this. Parenting a uniquely wired child can feel isolating, right? While other parents are talking about typical tantrums and bedtime battles, you're navigating emotional meltdowns, sensory overload, or challenging behaviors that many people just don't understand. It can be frustrating when the advice you hear just doesn't fit your child, and even harder when you feel like you're alone in the journey. But here's the truth. You don't have to settle for just surviving. In the Calm Connection Parent Coaching Program, I'll help you understand your child's unique wiring and give you faith-based practical strategies to not only manage the emotions and challenging behaviors, but actually help your whole family thrive. With video course, workbooks, a supportive community, and weekly coaching calls, you'll get personalized support every step of the way. If you're ready to stop feeling alone and start finding real solutions that work for you, your child, and your family, then visit calmconnectionparent.com to learn more. Together, let's move you from surviving to thriving. Let's do this. In the Calm Connection program, we explore sensory issues in much more detail. And a great resource I like to recommend is the book Understanding Your Child's Sensory Signals, and that's also available on Amazon. I'd also like to mention the resource called Rise with Sensory by Your Kids Table. It's led by an occupational therapist, Alicia Grogan, and she offers workshops focused on sensory processing and has been a great help as I tried to understand more of those issues related to sensory processing. Another book is Sensory Processing 101 by Dana Abraham, and she breaks it down really well. In fact, in the book, she provides excellent explanations of the sensory systems, and she discusses each one from both a parent and an occupational therapist's perspective. So again, Sensory Processing 101 and Understanding Your Child's Sensory Signals. Exploring sensory issues will give you valuable insight into how your child experiences their environment and all of the sensory input that they get throughout a day. And by understanding these specifics, you'll be able to brainstorm solutions to that maybe have been tripping up your child or challenging your child, that maybe your child hasn't even been able to articulate, simply because their body is processing information differently than yours might be. And now I would like to share the third avenue in exploring an emotionally intense child, and that is the mental health concerns. You may notice your child experiencing mental health concerns from time to time. However, when these symptoms persist, when they cause ongoing stress, or when they interfere with your child's ability to function, they may be indicating that there is a mental health condition that you need to explore. And this is where you often begin to see heightened intensity in their reactions. And those can oftentimes become very unpredictable. Understanding this aspect is an important piece of the puzzle when you explore your emotionally intense child and those unpredictable emotions that affect the whole family. Now, exploring this avenue may take time, research, and guidance from mental health professionals. To prepare, I would encourage you to take notes on any signs and symptoms you've noticed in your child. I encourage you to track their behaviors, some patterns that you may see. Write down your concerns and any questions you have before you meet with a doctor or a counselor. To begin evaluating your child for mental health concerns, you might consider the following steps. Visit a counselor and discuss your observations and concerns. Maybe schedule an appointment with your pediatrician to check for any underlying medical issues that can contribute. You might consider testing with a psychologist to gather more information and maybe explore potential diagnoses. And you might even need to seek help from a psychiatrist if necessary to better understand your child's mental health. If treatment or medication is necessary, you may be referred to a doctor or psychiatrist who specializes in treating mental health issues in children. And they can help you understand which treatments, including medications, may be most effective for your child's needs. Now, it can feel a little scary to work with doctors specializing in these fields, simply because of some of the mental health stigma in our society. But just like we would see an oncologist if we were dealing with cancer, or a podiatrist if we were working with feed issues, these are the doctors that have the expertise in the brain and emotional issues. So there's no need to perpetuate a stigma and avoid seeing the professionals that could best help your child just because their titles may be a little bit unfamiliar or uncomfortable. Now, it may be that your child just needs some supports put in place, or it may be that your child receives a diagnosis, and while that may feel scary, sometimes when you know what you're dealing with, you can better manage the issue and find more accurate and effective supports. You may hear diagnoses such as DMDD, ADHD, depression, anxiety, or a combination or various others. You might also need to explore some of the commonly associated issues around ADHD and DMDD, such as rejection-sensitive dysphoria, after-school restraint collapse, yes, it's a very real thing, or demand avoidance, just to name a few. And looking into these issues might help you get an idea of what fits with your child's struggles and what does not. And I encourage you, do your work ahead of time. Your role as advocate will be especially important, and you will always fare better when you are informed and knowledgeable, to ask questions, to make suggestions based on what you're finding in research, and sometimes to even push for what you know might be needed, simply because you live with your child. You see their unique wiring at a whole different level. And trust me, I know it can feel uncomfortable for some of us parents who are just taught to blindly trust or maybe not second guess a professional. But I want you to be ready to ditch that and learn a new step of courage for your child's care. It will take some confidence and indeed stepping out and trying things that might be uncomfortable. Once you've gone through this process, you'll have a clearer understanding of how mental health factors may be contributing to your child's emotional intensity and challenging behaviors. And this can allow you to manage those emotions and situations that you and your child face more effectively. So yes, you can put it all together. All three of those avenues are so important. The roadmap for understanding your emotionally intense or challenging child in those three key areas. Now, it may seem like a lot to take in, but like with anything, practice makes progress. No, we're not aiming for perfection, just progress. Focus on becoming a student of your child, watching their behaviors and responses, listening to what they're trying to express, and staying open to seeing and feeling things from their perspective. This will help you identify what triggers their anxiety, their frustration, their emotional dysregulation, and those intense emotions. By understanding their world, you're showing your child that you care about their unique experience and emotions. And it's one of the strongest ways for you to love your child and help strengthen and transform your relationship. Understanding your child is a journey, but it's one that's absolutely worth the effort. When you decode their emotions and address their unique needs, you can build a deeper connection and help your child thrive emotionally, physically, and relationally. Remember, if you've been feeling overwhelmed, you now have the roadmap to understanding your emotionally intense child. Take time to explore their personality, those sensory needs, and mental health. And when you do, you can watch your relationship with them flourish. Most importantly, remember you're not alone. Many parents are on this same journey. It's not just something we talk about in a lot of parenting groups, since judgment can come easy. But I encourage you to seek steady support on this path of parenting your emotionally intense child. You may be wondering, well, what is my next step? And I always want to make that clear here on this podcast. So if you're dealing with an emotionally intense child, I encourage you to start with learning their personality. This may be simple and easy and bring about the change that you need. And then you can make those adjustments, and that's great. You might already know their personality or just know that there's more to it than that. And it's not just a strong personality or an emotional personality style that you're working with. Then you might benefit from taking the emotional forecast quiz. The link for this resource will be inside the Parenting with Personality Facebook group. So join us there where you can find the link to that quiz and find out your results. Or message me. If you know you're ready to take the next step but desire some personal support along the way, you might consider checking out the Calm Connection Parent Coaching Program. This resource can help you understand your emotionally intense child and provide clarity in the areas we've discussed. You can learn to communicate effectively, address your child's unique needs, and even create those practical solutions to the challenges you run into on a daily basis. This program can make a difference in your child's life and in your family's dynamic. You can begin transforming your relationship, bringing understanding, connection, and growth. So I encourage you to check out the links and special sale at calmconnectionparent.com/sale to find out more about the limited time deals on the coaching programs and resources. Now, as we wrap up today's episode, remember, understanding their emotional intensity is the first step in turning emotional chaos into connection. By exploring your child's unique personality, sensory needs, and mental health, you will have the tools to respond with empathy, build trust, and create that safe space for your child to express those complex, confusing, big emotions. It's a journey, yes, but one that's so worth it. Because when you understand their world, you're showing them they're not alone in it. And I want to leave you with this thought. Your child's emotional intensity, while challenging at times, is part of the wonderful way they've been uniquely wired and created. God designed them with a purpose in mind, one that they are growing into every day. And we get a joy of being part of that journey. These big feelings and behaviors that you're navigating right now might seem very overwhelming. But what if those very traits, passion, determination, and drive, are being shaped into something incredible for their future? Those very traits that feel trying now might be just what they need to endure, persevere, and succeed in fulfilling that purpose for which they were created. They say your ability to feel joy and pain are related. Your capacity to feel one supposedly affects your capacity to experience the other. And according to this quote by Stacey Eldridge, the two are connected. A soul dead to the pain of this world and your own life is numb to the joy available to you as well. So maybe we should just stop for a moment and appreciate that our emotionally intense children, who are still learning to manage their deep and big emotions, might also be blessed to one day experience a very deep joy as well. Think of today's episode not just as encouragement, but as your roadmap. It can guide you through the challenges of parenting an emotionally intense child, with the hope that this journey will ultimately lead to deeper understanding, connection, and growth for both you and your child. You are traveling a road that is as unique as your child, and every turn you take, even in the tough moments, is shaping a strong path for their future. Keep learning, keep loving, and remember, you don't have to do this journey alone. Well, that's it for today, but the journey to calm parenting doesn't stop here. If you are nodding in agreement, laughing, or maybe even crying, don't worry, we've all been there. Make sure to share this podcast with a friend who might need it too. Don't forget to connect with us at parentingwithpersonality.com or join our Parenting with Personality Facebook group. I'd love to support you there. And until next time, you've got this. Just keep calm and parent on.